From Homeland Security, asylum overhaul. President Trump and Secretary Noam are putting an end to the idiotic policies that allowed millions of illegal aliens and hundreds of thousands of foreigners into our country unvetted. By the way, Secretary Kristi Noem, she's the Secretary of Homeland Security, if you didn't know. So let's give this a watch.
No, this could absolutely grow, Dana. This is evolving, especially as we do some real analysis on this. But I do think it's incredibly important for viewers to know what the prior administration was doing when it comes to vetting, especially when it came to this Operation Allies Welcome. This vetting was paper thin. They weren't doing biometric vetting. They weren't really doing criminal vetting, criminal screening.
Oh, man, they're flooding the cargo planes,
cyber
man.
screening, financial crimes. They weren't cross-referencing. They weren't looking at social media. So President Trump and Secretary Noem have completely overhauled this process to make sure we're diving in deep and seeing who are the people who are actually entering this country. As your past guests have said, almost 200,000 Afghan nationals entering this country, many of which were military-age men. The fact of the matter is the Biden administration didn't know who was coming into our country, causing a huge national security crisis. And that's exactly what we saw the other day with this terrorist attack, and then this near terrorist attack out of Fort Worth, Texas, where this individual was threatening to blow up a building.
Yeah, blow up. Yep.
Both of these individuals being Afghan nationals, both of them coming in under this Biden administration program.
Yeah, man, we got to keep our heads on a swivel because there could be sleeper cells out there. You know, it's got to start somewhere. So hopefully that's not going to happen, but always got to keep on the lookout. Tom Cotton, under Joe Biden's failed immigration policies, thousands of unvetted Afghan nationals flooded our country, endangering all Americans. Vetting standards for countries of concern like Afghanistan need to be revisited immediately.
Well, first, Brian, let me extend my condolences to the families and the loved ones and the battle buddies of the two National Guard soldiers who were attacked viciously last week on the streets of Washington. I think clearly vetting standards for every person who's been admitted in the country, especially from countries of concern like Afghanistan, need to be revisited. When our military and our CIA goes around the world, they work with unsavory characters. It's a necessary part of the job. And they engage in some vetting of those characters. But that's very different from the standards that we would apply to vet someone to come to this country, to live in our communities, to have a family, and to ultimately become American citizens. And that's what the Biden administration got so wrong. First off, they had just allowed Afghanistan to collapse, even though the warning signs were there in 2021. And then they rushed thousands and thousands of Afghan nationals into our country without applying those heightened standards. That's one reason I fought for years against the Biden administration effort to give immediate paths to citizenship to all of these people. And as you just heard Secretary Noem say, the administration is going to go back and revisit all of these cases to make sure that we don't have more such heinous attacks like the one that we saw last week in Washington.
Muted again. All right, yeah, that's fantastic news. I hope we have the personnel to handle all of that, because that's got to be hundreds of thousands of people, not just from Afghanistan, but from all these different third world countries. And look, people move around. Are they keeping tabs? All these Afghanis that moved here, are they required? I'm sure they're probably required to probably maintain some sort of a contact with some government entity, but are they really? Or are they just moving around just all willy-nilly and we have no idea where they are anymore? That's probably the case, and it's going to take a ton of investigating to find where everybody is, just so we can get to the point where we can start vetting them. So, A.G. Pambandi, Biden failed to vet the millions of illegal aliens he allowed into our country.
The one that you talked about that happened days before the Thanksgiving shooting, that one, he had been here through Operation Allies Welcome Program, minimal to little vetting. I was on the phone last night with Secretary Kristi Noem at length. They did not do biometrics. They did not do social media. They did very little, if minimal, vetting on all of these people. And now to take a step back, we have a 1.5 million backlog of people that have come into our country. And as you said, these people are being radicalized. We know that this shooter who shot our National Guardsman in D.C. the day before Thanksgiving, he was radicalized. You're going to hear a lot more about that. And these people should not have been in our country, should have never been in our country under Joe Biden. The one that you talked about that...
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, who radicalized him? Was it the mainstream media, or did he already come over, radicalized to some degree? It's probably more the case than the former. We'll just have to wait and see. I guess they're investigating. Senator Marsha Blackburn, Joe Biden failed to vet the worst criminal illegal aliens imaginable, and Americans have suffered the consequences. The Trump administration is getting our country back on track.
I'm pleased to hear AG Bondi talk about this, Secretary Noem talking about this, and reinvigorating the process, the vetting process. As I said, when Joe Biden did this, that in 2021, you do not have a 1-800 Taliban number to call. You do not have a website for the Afghani government that you can go to and make certain you have the name, the birth date, the proper documentation on these individuals, and that they are indeed who they claim to be.
Yeah, and that's a problem. That's a major problem. I really wish X would get their freaking video quality under control. I mean, improve it with all the money that they've spent on this website. All right, Secretary Kristi Noem, the Biden administration let in 100,000 Afghan nationals into our country during Operation Allies Welcome, many of them military-aged men with zero front-end vetting. Under President Trump, DHS is overhauling the vetting process for aliens. We are requiring the country of origin to cross-reference biometric data and criminal history, expanding our vetting to include social media screening, and directing individuals to check in every year. Well, if they're requiring the country of origin to cross-reference biometric data, that's going to avoid tons of them from the get-go, because I'm sure there's a lot of third world countries. They're not keeping biometric records on just everyday citizens, most likely. But I don't know. What do I know?
Yeah, well, Greta, you asked how many people came in. We think up to 100,000 people came in under Operation Allies Welcome that may be here that we don't know necessarily who they are or why they came to this country. If they came here truly maybe for asylum, or if they were someone who had nefarious ideas on how to attack Americans or to undermine our way of life. What I would say on the vetting process is that has to happen before they ever come here. They have to be vetted before we allow them to get on a plane and come to the United States of America, so that we know what their intentions are and who they are. And in order for us to do that, I know from the Department of Homeland Security standpoint, we have to have another government and another country that cooperates with us, that shares information with us, that will help us check dates of service.
If not, you shall not pass.
Collect biometric information and data. That wasn't done by Joe Biden. It wasn't done by his administration. They did a vetting process, but it wasn't thorough. They didn't look at social media platforms, and that's all of the changes that President Trump is implementing.
Yep, and the dude that did the shooting in D.C., he worked with the CIA with, what was that, Zero Team or Zero, I can't remember the name of it offhand. But yeah, I mean, he worked for essentially the federal government for years, so I'm sure that they had enough information, which leads me to believe that he was probably radicalized after he got here. Exactly what he was watching, who he was listening to. Probably didn't act alone. I'm sure that there's a lot of contacts that's in his Rolodex or whatever that they're probably getting to. Plus, they found a whole bunch of different cell phones at his residence. So why would just some everyday Afghani national who came over here during the whole Biden withdrawal debacle, who's not working, by the way, he didn't have a job. So why would he have a whole bunch of different cell phones? Okay, Scott Turner, HUD terminated Operation Allies Welcome days into the Trump administration. The days of unchecked American taxpayer dollars to the flood of illegals are over. And not sure what this is. So memorandum of understanding between the Department of Health and Human Services Office of Refugee Resettlement and the Department of Housing and Urban Development Office of Field Policy and Management. And then it goes over the purpose, the authorities, the participant responsibilities, and some more of that. Responsibilities, dispute resolution, publicity, designated points of contact, effective date, legal effect. Anyway, they've terminated it. It's been terminated. It was dated August the 4th of 2023, but I'll repost that if you want to check that out. And let's see, what do we got here? So another one from Scott Turner. Biden weaponized HUD as part of Operation Allies Welcome, letting a countless number of individuals into our country unchecked. We saw the fateful result today. HUD is investigating, more updates to come. So what is Operation Allies Welcome? The program that gave some Afghans entry to the U.S. That's on the New York Times. Biden administration set up the initiative after the Taliban retook power in Afghanistan in August of 2021 for those who assisted U.S. troops. And just a few pages of that, the overview. Biden directed the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to lead implementation of ongoing efforts across the federal government to support vulnerable Afghans, including those who worked alongside the U.S. and Afghanistan for the past 2 decades as they safely resettle in the United States. And let's see, Operation Allies Welcome, HUD programs and resources. There's information on that. And what does he got circled here? So HUD, public housing, and Section 8 programs, eligible and eligible. So quick guide to federal benefits eligibility for Afghan new arrivals. So this is all the stuff that they're eligible for. They're eligible for supplemental supplemental security income, or SSI, supplemental nutrition assistance program, so they can get SNAP benefits, temporary assistance for needy families, or TANF, emergency Medicaid, includes labor and delivery, Affordable Care Act health plans and subsidies, so they're getting free healthcare insurance, full scope Medicaid, so anything that they want, anything their hearts desire with regard to their healthcare, it is covered by the taxpayer. Women, infants, and children, they can get WIC, Children's Health Insurance Program, or CHIP, refugee resettlement programs through ORR, services offered through Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA, and they're even eligible for the federal student aid and Pell Grants. Oh my God. This is unbelievable. But, yep, that's your federal government, at least under the Biden administration. And it's probably not just the Afghan refugees. I'm sure that's probably any and all quote-unquote refugees or asylum seekers or anybody coming from the third world. They're taking advantage of everything that our government system has to offer. It's absolutely insane. Like, dude, no wonder we're pushing $40 trillion in debt. All right, Chad Gilmartin, AG Pam Bondi's DOJ is already leading the way to denaturalize national security threats, drug cartel and gang members, human traffickers, sex offenders, violent criminals, and fraudsters. Under the president's plan, or under President Trump, this DOJ will protect the integrity of our sacred naturalization program from those who obtained U.S. citizenship illegally. So the Civil Division shall prioritize and maximally pursue denaturalization proceedings in all cases permitted by law and supported by the evidence, to promote the pursuit of all viable denaturalization cases available under 8 U.S.C. 1451 and maintain the integrity of the naturalization system while simultaneously ensuring an appropriate allocation of resources. The Civil Division has established the following categories of priorities for denaturalization cases. Number 1, cases against individuals who pose a potential danger to national security, including those with a nexus to terrorism, espionage, or the unlawful export from the United States of sensitive goods, technology, or information raising national security concerns. Number 2, cases against individuals who engage in torture, war crimes, or other human rights violations. 3, cases against individuals who furthered the unlawful enterprise of criminal gangs, transnational criminal organizations, and drug cartels. 4, cases against individuals who committed felonies that were not disclosed during the naturalization process. 5, cases against individuals who committed human trafficking, sex offenses, or violent crimes. The next one, cases against individuals who engaged in various forms of financial fraud against the United States, including Paycheck Protection Program loan fraud and Medicaid, Medicare fraud. Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP, that was back in the COVID era. When, like, if you had a small business, you could apply for a loan, and in some cases, the government would forgive that loan. A lot of people went to federal prison for that, especially U.S. citizens. A lot of U.S. citizens fraudulently took advantage of that. Number 7, cases against individuals who engaged in fraud against private individuals, funds, or corporations. Number 8, cases against individuals who acquired naturalization through government corruption, fraud, or material misrepresentations, not otherwise addressed by another priority category. Number 9, cases referred by a United States Attorney's Office or in connection with pending criminal charges, if those charges do not fit within one of the other priorities. And number 10, any other cases referred to the Civil Division that the division determines to be sufficiently important to pursue. These categories are intended to guide the Civil Division in prioritizing which cases to pursue. However, these categories do not limit the Civil Division from pursuing any particular case, nor are they listed in a particular order of importance. Further, the Civil Division retains the discretion to pursue cases outside of these categories as it determines appropriate. The assignment of denaturalization cases may be made across sections or units based on experience, subject matter expertise, and the overall needs of the civil division. So there you go. That's the 10-point list, or the 10 guidelines that they're using with regard to denaturalization. And from Rapid Response 47, I believe this was yesterday. Yeah, November 30th. If we have criminals that came into our country and they were naturalized, maybe through Biden or somebody that didn't know what they were doing, if I have the power to do it, I would denaturalize absolutely.
Mr. President, you said that you might denaturalize some American citizens. Can you talk about...
You mean people that are in here that shouldn't be here?
That became Americans. Are you trying
well, we'll see. I mean, yeah, if we have criminals that came into our country and they were naturalized maybe through a Biden or somebody that didn't know what they were doing, if I have the power to do it, I'm not sure that I do, but if I do, I would denaturalize absolutely.
Mr. President, you said that you might...
Yeah, and you know what? Not going to get a lot of pushback from that, especially those who failed to keep their oath when they take that oath to become a U.S. citizen. You know, to hold your allegiance to the United States and denounce any other country. Secretary Brooke Rollins, at the president's discretion, we will be reviewing all USDA programs to ensure only legal citizens are receiving benefits. Earlier this year, USDA put states on notice, reminding them illegal immigrants and certain non-citizens cannot receive SNAP benefits. Right now, we are requiring states turn over recipient data to fight waste, fraud, and abuse. Even though 22 blue states have refused to provide the data, we are using every tool to compel their compliance. What are they hiding? Who are they hiding? Thank you, President Trump, for putting Americans first. And I'm not going to read this one again. I read this the day after. Yeah, it must have been November 29th when I read this on The Swamp. Very long post. I'll repost it if you didn't catch that. But it's a very long one with regard to President Trump giving a happy Thanksgiving, talking about how migrants who earn $30,000 with a green card, they end up getting $50,000 in annual benefits courtesy of the taxpayers. And he goes on to the state of our immigration and Biden's debacle with regard to Afghanistan and all that. Okay, so libs of TikTok, 21 states plus DC, they sue the Trump administration over the changes to SNAP benefits for migrants. But I thought migrants weren't receiving SNAP benefits. Yeah, they're not supposed to be, but for some reason they want to sue over it. 21 states sue Trump admin over changes to immigrant SNAP eligibility. Democratic attorneys general in states like California and New York argued that new guidance illegally blocks legal permanent residents from receiving food stamps. I'm not sure if that's the case, but I mean, look, if they're not actual American citizens, they shouldn't be getting the benefits anyway. And if they can't afford to live here, then go back. Go back to the country you came from. If you can't afford it, you can't pay for your own food. Dear U.S. attorneys, from Mike Davis, providing financial support to illegal aliens is the federal felony of harboring under 8 U.S. Code, Section 1324. Start charging. And November 29th from C3, 22 states do not want to send their SNAP data to the Trump administration to verify immigration status. 21 of the 22 have Democrat governors. Now, why do you think they are resisting? Because the fraud in the SNAP data is staggering. Illegals are getting it, millions of them. Absolutely they are. And of course, that's going to probably take years to compile all that data. So I'm sure that the federal government is fully within their right to compile all of that data, but they're going to stonewall as long as humanly possible. Department of State from the press secretary. Is this a full quote? Yeah, it's full quote, so I'll just play the video.
The Trump administration has done more to limit migration, both illegal and legal, than any administration in history. And I'll just walk you through some of the actions that we have taken thus far. Number one, the Trump administration issued a travel ban for 19 countries, including Afghanistan. Special immigrant visas, which is a legal pathway to get here, which we know many Afghans have utilized to come into the country, have now been paused since the tragic shooting last week. Refugee admissions were suspended for Afghans from this administration on day one, and refugee admissions into the country right now are essentially at zero, with the exception of Afrikaners fleeing persecution in South Africa. The State Department has also heightened their scrutiny and vetting of all visas and have revoked visas, as you know, for those who do not align with our country's national interests. The Secretary of State has the right to do that, and we've taken unprecedented action to do just that. We are also now pausing all asylum adjudications for additional vetting as well. The Trump
and of course,
administration.
76% of Americans, they're in favor of mass deportations. Fox News Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt lays out claims of massive fraud in Minnesota. 86 people charged in widespread Minnesota fraud schemes. 78 are Somali immigrants. Go figure. 59 individuals convicted so far for participating in plots that stole roughly $1 billion from taxpayers across multiple programs. A nonprofit and its affiliates falsely claimed to have fed tens of thousands of children during the pandemic and were reimbursed with taxpayer funds. Federal prosecutors say nearly all meals were never delivered. Leaders of the nonprofit allegedly spent taxpayer money on luxury homes, cars, and real estate in Turkey and Kenya. A second fraud scheme involved hundreds of organizations billing Minnesota for services meant to help people at risk of homelessness. Services, prosecutors say, were never performed.
Refugees who come here under the alleged plight of asylum and fleeing persecution and then come to the United States to abuse our system.
Yeah, and economic reasons, that ain't a reason. That's not good enough to seek asylum, which is what many, if not most people who came from Latin America were doing.
And rip off American taxpayers. And as I pointed out, the New York Times, to their credit, it was about 6 months too late, but they did write about how Somali immigrants in Minnesota have been ripping off American taxpayers. In fact, 86 people have been charged in a rampant and widespread fraud scheme spanning multiple programs in Minnesota. Of those 86, 78 of those people are Somali, 91% of them charged. So far, 59 of those people have been convicted for their roles in fraud plots that have stolen $1 billion from taxpayers.
Wow, man,
in
most
one
of them have been
scheme,
convicted
and this is
already.
egregious, a nonprofit and its affiliates with these Somali migrants claim to have fed tens of thousands of American children during the pandemic. They were reimbursed for those meals by taxpayers. However, federal prosecutors found that almost all of those meals were never even delivered to hungry children.
Never delivered.
In fact, those organizations' leaders spent the money on houses, luxury cars, and real estate in Turkey and Kenya.
Friggin' Turkey
Another
and Kenya.
scheme involved hundreds of organizations who were reimbursed for services that were supposed to help people at risk of homelessness. Once again, those services were never provided. All of this has happened under Democrat leadership in a Democrat-run state where these refugees, these migrants are coming to the United States. They are abusing our system. They are draining our resources that should be going to law-abiding, taxpayer-funded, tax-paying Americans. And this president is not going to put up with it anymore.
Yeah, and like Democrats are like, hey, look over here. Don't look over there. Don't pay attention to what we're doing over there. No. Look over here. Pay attention to this. Don't watch what we're doing. Don't watch all this money that we're squandering. That should be, by all right, going to you and not to illegals or asylum seekers, refugees. Tricia McLaughlin, under Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, has refused to honor ICE's detainers and released back onto New York streets 6,947 criminal illegal aliens since January the 20th. The crimes of these aliens include 29 homicides, 2,509 assaults, 207 sexual predatory offenses, 199 burglaries, 305 robberies, 392 dangerous drug offenses, 300 weapons offenses. This is why we flood the zone. And you're not getting any pushback from any left-wing activists like those Believe All Women and Me Too. Yet 207 sexual predatory offenses. I mean, where's all the screaming voices for those victims? Nowhere to be found. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, at my direction, U.S. Treasury is investigating allegations that under the feckless mismanagement of the Biden administration and Governor Tim Walz, hardworking Minnesotans' tax dollars may have been diverted to the terrorist organization Al-Shabaab. Thanks to the leadership of the president, we are acting fast to ensure Americans' taxes are not funding acts of global terror. We will share our findings as our investigation continues. And from Christopher F. Rufo, that Secretary Bessent was responding to, exclusive, R.K. Thorpe, who's an investigative reporter, Manhattan Institute, City Journal, and New York Post. R.K. Thorpe and I have new reporting on America's Somali fraud rings, which have stolen billions in taxpayer funds and sent some to Islamist terrorists back home. Quote, the largest funder of Al-Shabaab is the Minnesota taxpayer. Wow, man. This is on city-journal.org. All right, Minnesota drowning in fraud. Billions in taxpayer dollars have been stolen during the administration of Governor Tim Walz alone. Democratic state officials overseeing one of the most generous welfare regimes in the country are asleep at the switch, and the media, duty-bound by progressive pieties, refuse to connect the dots. So many cases, the fraud has allegedly been perpetrated by members of Minnesota's sizable Somali community. Federal counterterrorism sources confirm that millions of dollars in stolen funds have been sent back to Somalia, where they ultimately landed in the hands of the terror group Al-Shabaab. As one confidential source put it, the largest funder of Al-Shabaab is the Minnesota taxpayer. Our investigation shows what happens when a tribal mindset meets a bleeding heart bureaucracy, when imported clan loyalties collide with a political class too timid to offend, and when accusations of racism are cynically deployed to shield criminal behavior. The predictable result is graft, with taxpayers left to foot the bill. If you were to design a welfare program to facilitate fraud, it would probably look a lot like Minnesota's Medicaid Housing Stabilization Services Program. The HSS program, the first of its kind in the country, was launched with a noble goal: to help seniors, addicts, the disabled, and the mentally ill secure housing. It was designed with low barriers to entry and minimal requirements for reimbursement. Nonetheless, before the program went live in 2020, officials pegged its annual estimated price tag at $2.6 million with an M. Costs quickly spiraled out of control. Yeah, of course they did. In 2021, the program paid out more than $21 million in claims. In the following years, annual costs shot up to $42 million, then $74, then $104. During the first 6 months of 2025, payouts totaled $61 million. On August 1st, Minnesota's Department of Human Services moved to scrap the HSS program, noting that payment to 77 housing stabilization providers had been terminated this year due to credible allegations of fraud. Joe Thompson, then the acting U.S. Attorney for the District of Minnesota, went even further, stating the vast majority of the HSS program was fraudulent. On September 18th, Thompson announced criminal indictments for HSS fraud against Mokhtar Hassan Aden, Mustafa Dayeb Ali, Khalid Ahmed Dayeb, Abdi Fida Mohammed, Christopher Adesoji Falad, Emmanuel Aluwade Milade Falad, Asad Ahmed Adaw, and Anwar Ahmed Adaw, 6 of whom, according to a U.S. Attorney's Office spokesperson, are members of Minnesota's Somali community. Thompson made clear that this is just the first round of charges for HSS fraud that his office will be prosecuting. Most of these cases, unlike a lot of Medicare fraud and Medicaid fraud cases nationally, aren't just over billing, Thompson said at a press conference announcing the indictments. These are often just purely fictitious companies solely created to defraud the system, and that's unique in the extent to which we have that here in Minnesota. So it goes on from there. That'll be linked below if you want to read the rest of that. And we'll roll to the next thing, probably still related. Let's see, DOW rapid response. President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have made it clear that presidentially designated narco-terrorist groups are subject to lethal targeting in accordance with the laws of war. So changing things up just a little bit.
President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have made it clear that presidentially designated narco-terrorist groups are subject to lethal targeting in accordance with the laws of war. With respect to the strikes in question on September 2nd, Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat to the United States of America was eliminated. And I would just add one more point to remind the American public why these lethal strikes are taking place. Because this administration has designated these narco-terrorists as foreign terrorist organizations. The president has a right to take them out if they are threatening the United States of America and if they are bringing illegal narcotics that are killing our citizens at a record rate, which is what they are doing. And under the previous administration, there was enough fentanyl trafficked into our country to kill every American man, woman, and child many times over. And so that's why you've seen a drastic difference in this administration's policy with respect to the last, and it's one of the many reasons the American public reelected this president and support this Secretary of War in conducting these strikes.
All right, well, it's all about that depopulation agenda that the World Economic Forum and the global elites and all of them, they want to depopulate the earth. And that's one way of many ways of doing it. Pitting women against men, pushing abortions, making everybody gay, so on and so forth. All right, breaking 911. Infuriating. In Dallas, authorities will not pursue the death penalty for an illegal alien accused of beheading a motel manager with a machete in front of his children on September 10th. The suspect has prior arrests for child sexual assault and carjacking. That is fucked
They will
up,
not
dude.
seek the death penalty against a man charged with beheading a coworker in front of that coworker's family.
So that's the plan, at
Man,
least
talk about a
for
time to
now,
use the
from
death penalty.
prosecutors to the judge presiding over that capital murder trial. The shocking violence taking place in broad daylight. It happened in September in front of witnesses. There were also cameras. Fox 4 Sean Rabb in our newsroom now with this story. Sean.
Yeah, so no trial date has been set yet, but the undocumented Yordanis Cobos Martinez, a Cuban native, learned today the state will likely not seek the death penalty for the gruesome crime.
Likely. So is it still possible then?
Shackled and suited out in a tan jail jumper, shadowed by sheriff's deputies, Yordanis Cobos Martinez made his first appearance in a Dallas courtroom. September 10th, Dallas police arrested Cobos Martinez about 30 minutes after he allegedly beheaded the motel manager where the two men worked. 50-year-old Chandra Ben Nagamalaya, murdered in front of his family.
State of Texas versus Yordanis Cobo Martinez. Is that your name, sir?
Through an interpreter, the 37-year-old answered Judge Leila Lawrence Mays.
Yes. Oh, very good.
Cobos Martinez is charged with capital murder for the horrific machete attack. That, like his arrest, was caught on tape.
Sounds like he's not getting capital punishment.
As it relates to, or at least the decision as it relates to seeking the death penalty?
Your Honor, at this point, based on our investigation and my conversations, the state of Texas is not seeking the death penalty, but we do reserve the right to change our mind should anything come up.
Dude, you've
that
got to be
caused
kidding.
court-appointed defense counsel Leyland Peel to tell the judge the state's intention needs to be clear.
That doesn't really tell me anything. They reserve the right to seek death. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's...
Yeah, like what the hell's going to cause you to change your mind? Dude beheaded somebody in broad daylight in front of his kids. I mean, what are we talking about here?
Until they officially come out and sign and file a document that says they're not seeking death.
Cobos Martinez at times looked around at no one in particular, as he said quietly, but his time in the U.S. has been anything but. The Cuban national has a history in other states like California that includes child sex abuse, false imprisonment, and carjacking.
Dude, that would be one argument for an eye. Give him the same punishment, the same exact method at which he took somebody else's life.
If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Check out The Swamp, Monday through Friday at 11 p.m. Eastern, with segments dropping on the daily. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.